Friday at 10 on WOUB.
Tonight on Newswatch, a grand jury in Manhattan votes to indict former President Donald Trump.
Plus, another train derailment, this time in Minnesota.
And in sports, Ohio football preps for a season with high expectations. Newswatch starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Juliana Colant.
And I'm Joe Collins, and as we come on the air tonight, a New York grand jury votes to indict former President Donald Trump. Here is a look live in West Palm Beach, Florida, where Donald Trump is preparing to head to New York, where a grand jury has just voted to indict the former president. This is the first time in American history that a current or former president will face criminal charges. The district attorney's office in Manhattan has been investigating the former president in connection with his alleged role in a hush money payment scheme and cover-up involving adult film star Stormy Daniels. Trump has frequently called the investigation a, quote, witch hunt and claims they are political probes led by Democratic prosecutors.
The indictment of the former president is a monumental moment in the nation's history and creates a new political landscape in the country, just as the 2024 presidential campaign begins. Republican allies of the former president have condemned the district attorney's office over the indictment. And on Capitol Hill, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has vowed to launch an investigation into the matter.
We will keep you updated on this story as it develops. Classes resumed today at Nelsonville York schools after a threat of violence was made against the district yesterday. Student Resource Officer Lyons was made aware of the threat earlier yesterday morning. Within 12 minutes, additional officers arrived on scene to ensure the safety of the students. Police were also able to identify the suspect and their possible location, later taking them into custody without issue. This is an ongoing investigation, but the district says there is currently no threats to students, staff, or the community. In a statement posted on social media, the district says, quote, the safety of students at Nelsonville York is paramount to our department, and any threats or actions will be investigated to the fullest extent. A new 911 system could be put into place in Southeast Ohio as soon as July 1st of 2024. It's a much-needed upgrade to ensure quicker communication times between dispatch and officers. Newswatch reporter Jacob Mata has the story from Vinton County.
In places like Vinton County and the surrounding area, there are dead zones that sometimes make it difficult for officers to communicate with dispatch.
With the lack of technology that is in the area, the infrastructure is lacking. We get a lot of 911 calls that go to other counties.
But with this new system comes a lot of upgrades that will benefit both the people calling in and the dispatchers receiving the calls.
The next generation 911 system will allow police and dispatchers working at stations like this one to relay information quicker, save more lives, and inevitably keep themselves safer.
The switch to the next gen 911 system is necessary to keep up with the way people communicate today, largely through mobile and digital devices. The new system integrates voice and text to 911 and provides a more precise location as to where the call is coming from, and calls will be easier to transfer between jurisdictions. Included in Governor Mike DeWine's proposed budget is funds to help counties upgrade to the new system, according to the Director of the Department of Administrative Services, Kathleen Madden.
So with the Next Gen 911, it was Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Husted's priority to eliminate some of the startup costs associated with bringing the state to Next Gen 911.
For Newswatch,
985-350.
I'm Jacob Mata in MacArthur.
Scioto County Sheriff's Office arrests 3 people in connection with a human trafficking operation. Police arrested Ronald Whiteley III and Kaylee Menard of Wheelersburg and Janelle Schmidt of Portsmouth on counts of promoting prostitution. Police say victims will be offered the opportunity for treatment and other community resources. No trial date has been set in the case. 2 Brookville women who went missing in New Mexico yesterday are now found in an extremely remote area of the state. The Brookville, Ohio police said in a social media post, the missing women, Robin Bodine and Tracy Shue, went for a trip to Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, about 2 hours south of Albuquerque, to stay at the Riverbend Hot Springs. Both families were originally unable to contact the women for more than 24 hours. Officials reported the women had also not gotten on their flight home, leaving from the Phoenix airport. The story is still developing as there is no other information on how they were found or how they ended up there.
And for weather, looking out there, you can see that our temps have been in the cooler side this morning, definitely. I wasn't sure if we were going to get up to those 60s, but as you can see, those are getting up there. Right now in Athens, we're in the 60s. We're looking sunny all over. Charleston, about in the 60s. Parkersburg, we're about in the mid-50s to 60s everywhere right now. Right now, like I said, 60s and clear. Going into it, that mostly sunny skies, that would be the high of 58 and that low of 40. That will be coming later tonight. The only thing that I'm worried about for our weekend is this little blip that's happening. So I'll definitely be getting into that in my full weather coming up. Back to you, Joe.
Thanks, Isabel. Opponents of Ohio's death penalty introduced legislation to abolish it. State Senate leader Matt Huffman is against eliminating the death penalty. He says if there's enough votes to pass it, he will let it come to Florida votes. All Democratic senators and some Senate Republicans are on board with abolishing the death penalty. The bill has yet to have any hearings, and eliminating the death penalty has been introduced for over a decade. A procedural move could force a vote on a proposal making it more difficult to amend the Ohio Constitution. Republican State Representative Susan Manchester pulled a discharge petition yesterday on a House resolution raising the threshold for passing future constitutional amendments from 50% to 60%. The petition was brought forward by Manchester after State House Speaker Jason Stephens says he would not support the proposal. 2 earlier attempts by a Republican faction to push the amendment have failed. If the petition is successful, the resolution would bypass the normal committee process and the House Speaker.
The transportation budget is on its way to Governor Mike DeWine's desk for a signature after a near unanimous passing in both the Ohio House and Senate. Republican House Speaker Jason Stephens says he was pleased a conference committee could work out differences on force account limits, which specify how construction project funds can be allocated. The budget includes $3.6 billion for the Brent Spence Bridge project in Cincinnati and a feasibility study for passenger rail and rail safety provisions. In its first version, the budget does not include a $1 billion rural highway fund or speed limit increases. The U.S. is facing its first ever potential financial default, but talks to address the nation's debt ceiling remain at a standstill. President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy are at odds on the issue, and the deadline to address the matter keeps inching forward. John Lornick reports.
Democratic Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia wants action on the U.S. debt limit. In an op-ed published by the Wall Street Journal Wednesday night, Manchin wrote that the Biden administration is, quote, determined to pursue an ideological agenda rather than confront the clear and present danger that debts and deficits pose to our nation.
If we could get our revenue growth to match our spending growth, then we'd be in a good spot. But right now we're 2 to 3 times that.
The White House says President Biden has laid out plans to get the U.S. back on its feet financially.
He's put forth a budget for the next fiscal year that laid out how he was going to cut the deficit by $3 trillion over 10 years. And that is showing responsibility, that's showing fiscal responsibility.
And the administration is pointing a finger of blame at the GOP for not responding in kind.
We have not seen anything from House Republicans. What we have seen and heard are excuses after excuses after excuses.
House Republicans are considering holding off on their budget proposals until after the debt ceiling talks are further along, according to a source familiar with the discussions.
The person who's dragging their feet, or in my view, not even moving their feet, is the president.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
Coming up after the break, why Ohio leaders are urging Congress to pass their railroad safety bill. Plus, 9 are dead after 2 Army Black Hawk helicopters from Fort Campbell crashed last night. These stories and more when Newswatch returns.
And for the weather, we're looking like we're going to have some pretty intense precipitation this weekend. Definitely stick up with us on Newswatch for that. And check us out on our socials on YouTube, Instagram, and our Twitter.
On American Experience.
The sun's energy is absorbed and transformed into heat.
Maria Telkish was a solar evangelist. She really imagined this as revolutionizing the way that people lived.
Nothing else would even get close to the Dover Sun House.
She's laying a foundation for pretty much everything now that we do with solar.
The Sun Queen on American Experience.
Tuesday at 9 on WOUB.
People ask, what was the American strategy? The Americans did not have a strategy for Afghanistan.
Drawing on years of reporting from both sides of the war.
You set off a car bomb, it's going to kill innocent civilians.
This was fighting.
It wasn't clear they had the patience or the understanding.
We asked an enormous amount of those on the ground in particular.
Missteps and miscalculations.
Why did we fail in our mission, and who was responsible?
Part 1 premieres Tuesday, April 4th, 10, 9 Central, only on PBS.
You are kidding me!
On Finding Your Roots, Billy Crudup.
These are the forces that shape our lives, you know?
Yeah. And Tamara Mowry.
You know when you always say, I got it from my mama?
A patriot helped settle a city.
How could this not have been passed down?
And an ancestor challenges the establishment.
He was a religious radical.
That's insane!
Plus, a DNA match.
Are you kidding me? Get out of here.
Finding Your Roots. New episode April 4th on PBS and the PBS app.
American Masters Profiles celebrated soulstress Roberta Flack.
Yeah.
She rose from classically trained.
I always dreamed of stardom.
To social justice storyteller with songs that were ahead of their time.
She was literally everywhere because her music went everywhere.
Check out Roberta.
The story just goes on and on and on.
On American Masters.
Friday at 10 on WOUB.
Democrats and Republicans from Ohio are urging Congress to pass the road safety bill. The bipartisan bill is called Reducing Accidents in Locomotives, or the RAIL Act. The legislation largely mirrors a similar Senate bill with funding for training and penalties for violating safety regulations. It follows the Norfolk Southern train derailment that released hazardous materials in East Palestine, Ohio.
The RAIL Act will also hold rail corporations like Norfolk Southern accountable. And I think it's worth saying it again, it is holding rail corporations accountable. For far too long, rail corporations have put profits over people, endangering our communities and our environment in the process. And enough.
Like the Senate bill, the House legislation requires hotbox detectors every 5 miles on the tracks. The Federal Railroad Administration recommends those because they can detect overheated wheels and alert train crew members. It says that overheating has been a factor in recent derailments. The House bill goes farther than the Senate one in requirements for hazardous material signs. It leaves out funding for research and development and the requirement of a 2-person crew. Ohio companies and workers will do all future repair and replacement work from the East Palestine train derailment. Norfolk Southern commits to this after a proposal from Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost. The Youngstown-Warren Regional Chamber of Commerce will serve as a resource for Norfolk Southern, providing what's needed for cleanup. Yost's agreement with Norfolk Southern has no bearing on the lawsuit filed by the state earlier this month against the transportation company. Millions of dollars are spent on the cleanup per a federal administrative order, and Yost wants the money to benefit Ohio businesses and workers. An overnight train derailment in Minnesota is just the latest in a slew of recent incidents, adding to the growing concern over the safety of the nation's railroads. Chris Wen is in Washington with more on the government's response.
Rail cars bursting into flames early Thursday morning when a BNSF railway train hauling ethanol and mixed freight, including corn syrup, derailed in Raymond, Minnesota, forcing nearby residents to evacuate for several hours.
We take full accountability for it and will continue to be here until this is cleaned up.
Ethanol is a highly flammable chemical. The effects of exposure can include coughing, dizziness, and unconsciousness. But so far, officials say there have been no injuries or reports of toxic exposure.
Safety of the community is our utmost priority.
This comes nearly 2 months after the February derailment of a Norfolk Southern train carrying hazardous chemicals in East Palestine, Ohio, that sparked a days-long inferno. And it's just the latest in a string of recent incidents calling the safety of the nation's railways into question.
The reason that we're pushing so hard on railroad safety is to make sure there are fewer of these incidents. This happens more often than I think most Americans realize.
As the federal government launches investigations into the causes of the derailments, lawmakers on Capitol Hill are taking action.
The Rail Act makes important and pragmatic changes to the way our nation's rail industry operates, ensuring that our families, friends, and neighbors are kept safe.
A bipartisan group of Ohio representatives recently proposed legislation that includes provisions to enhance federal oversight of freight trains, increases funding for hazardous materials training for first responders, and increases penalties for rail safety violations. In Washington, I'm Chris Wynn.
Hello. Going into tonight, that overnight low is going to be about 40, but what I am worried about is tomorrow. So tomorrow you can see right now we're looking pretty clear, but this little blip is showing up. With this wind coming from the south and then this coldness that's happening, it's going to be converging and giving us some rain for our Friday. So that high temperature is going to be about 60. It is going to be on the warmer side, that temperature low about 50, but 100% chance of showers. Going into it, we are going to be seeing tomorrow, we're pretty much all getting hit for this rain. It's going to be pretty in and out, coming in at about 10 a.m. is about when it's going to be at its hardest, going until about 4 or 5, and then again tomorrow night, it's going to be hitting, again, even harder. You could see here in Parkersburg, Charleston, us here in Athens, it's going to be hitting a little bit harder going in at about 11 to after midnight. Also going into our Saturday. So our Saturday, these rain chances are going to be pretty intense still going into the morning, but after that, if you have any Saturday night plans, we are looking on the clearer side. Again, this could always change, but for right now, if you have any Saturday night plans, they're looking pretty clear. Going into this, how much rain we are getting, we're not getting as intense as it's happening in Memphis or in Cedar Rapids or anything, but we are going to be getting some showers. Going into our weekend, again, like I said, that high tomorrow of about 60, that low of 52. Saturday, that 30% chance of showers, that's going to be happening mostly in the morning, that high of 66, looking pretty warm out there, that low of 29. Sunday is whenever the rain is going to be kicking out of here with those 50, that high of 56, low of 57. Our 7-day is looking beautiful for next week with temperatures after Sunday all above the 70s. Wednesday even hitting as high as the 80s and that low of 61. You're going to want to check back on with us to see if those showers are going to be sticking around, but overall we're looking beautiful going into our next week, starting off looking pretty good for our April. Let's head back to Joe.
Thanks, Isabel. There were no survivors after 2 Army Black Hawk helicopters from Fort Campbell crashed last night. Army officials say the 2 helos were on a night training mission. Investigative teams are gathering at the site, and Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear will tour the wreckage Thursday. Mike Valerio is in Trigg County, Kentucky, with more.
At approximately 10 p.m. last night, 2 of our Black Hawk helicopters were involved in a crash during a planned training flight in Cadiz, Kentucky, that resulted in the death of all 9 service members.
Officials say 2 crews, 4 and 5 members each, were aboard 2 H-860 Black Hawk helicopters conducting routine night training ops.
Specifically, they were flying a multi-ship formation, 2 ships under night vision goggles.
When you're talking about night vision goggles, when you're flying an aircraft, and I'll demonstrate, pardon me for this, but you have 2 goggles like this in front of your face, and that's where you can see using the illumination from whatever is out there, stars, moonlight.
Unknown yet if visibility was a factor. The exact cause is under investigation. One witness shared what he heard with a local radio station.
As soon as I got over the house, something popped, loud bang, and everything shut down just all of a sudden.
We have a safety team coming from Fort Rucker, Alabama, who specialize in aircraft safety and specifically these investigations.
Last month, a Black Hawk crashed in Huntsville, Alabama during training, killing both National Guardsmen on board.
We will always relook our safety precautions and our measures.
The grim task now, notifying the families of the 9 soldiers killed Wednesday night.
Freedom relies on those who are willing to serve, some of which pay the ultimate price.
In Trigg County, Kentucky, I'm Mike Valerio reporting.
This just in, the New York City Police Department is ramping up security in the city as former President Donald Trump is responding to a New York grand jury indictment. The former president says in a statement released by his campaign office, quote, radical left Democrats have engaged in a witch hunt to destroy his MAGA movement. Trump is accusing Democrats of cheating, quote, countless times and, quote, weaponizing our justice system to punish a political opponent. We will keep you updated as more information comes in.
Coming up in sports, Ohio football gears up for the upcoming season with expectations rising. Find out how the team is handling the pressure when Newswatch returns. And to stay up to date on the latest from Newswatch, check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
People asked what was the American strategy. The Americans did not have a strategy for Afghanistan.
Drawing on years of reporting from both sides of the war.
You set off a car bomb, it's going to kill innocent civilians.
This was fighting.
It wasn't clear they had the patience or the understanding.
We asked an enormous amount of those on the ground in particular.
Missteps and miscalculations.
Why did we fail in our mission, and who was responsible?
Part 1 premieres Tuesday, April 4th, 10, 9 Central, only on PBS.
Next time on Antiques Roadshow.
I always thought it was something special, but I didn't really know much about it.
Special treasures are our specialty.
And you're not joking.
And I'm not clowning around with you.
Not clowning around.
They are in museums all around the world.
Oh my gosh.
Many examples.
No copies, no transcripts have ever been made of this diary.
Watch Antiques Roadshow next time from the Idaho Botanical Garden in Boise.
Monday at 8 on WOUB.
On episode 1 of La Frontera, the US-Mexico border has the most crossings of anywhere in the world. And on this episode, I'm going to the busiest place on the map, California and Baja California, where binational collaborations and the blending of cultures is an opportunity for explosive creativity and growth.
Good job. Yay!
Monday at 9 on WOUB.
On American Experience.
The sun's energy is absorbed and transformed into heat.
Maria Telkush was a solar evangelist.
She really imagined this as revolutionizing the way that people lived.
Nothing else would even get close to the Dover Sun House.
She's laying a foundation for pretty much everything now that we do with solar.
The Sun Queen on American Experience.
Tuesday at 9 on WOUB.
Spring camp for Ohio football is in full swing as the team preps for what should be an exciting season. The expectations continue to rise for the Bobcats, who say they're going into the season with a chip on their shoulder. A walk-off touchdown in Tucson capped off a ridiculous campaign for Ohio football and represented a change in tone. A 10-win season, a MAC championship appearance, and an Arizona Bowl win have the Bobcats switching roles in 2023.
We're going from being the hunter to the hunted going into this offseason.
And the buzz ahead of the season opener is only getting louder. With key starters returning on both sides of the ball, a Power 5 team coming to Athens, and a 2-year extension on Coach Tim Albin's contract, excitement from Bobcat fans is reaching a fever pitch on social media. Two of the key leaders coming back are linebacker Bryce Houston and wide receiver Sam Wiglusz. They say they are focusing on the present.
This is not last season's team, so we know that we have to do the same exact things, if not better, to be able to succeed, especially because we know that we have a bullseye on our back and people are looking to get us now.
Everything's better when it's earned, so we feel like we earned that right to have the target on our back. And so, yeah, everyone wants to beat us, but they also have to beat us.
Ohio gets its first chance to prove itself August 26th against the San Diego State Aztecs. Before that first regular season game, the Bobcats will play in their spring game on April 15th.
Sounds like Ohio football has a new feel to it this upcoming season, sort of like Major League Baseball right now.
Yeah, that's right, guys. The MLB is starting today, and they're introducing a lot of new rule changes. The most controversial of them all being the new pitch clock for those taking the mound. In an attempt to speed up the game, pitchers will have 15 seconds to throw a pitch with the bases empty and 20 seconds with runners on base. You'll also see bigger bases on the field to help player safety. And you can see all these changes starting today. 2 hours west, the Cincinnati Reds are trailing the Pittsburgh Pirates 5-4, and the Cleveland Guardians have first pitch set for 10:10.
Thanks, Aiden. Though Athens does not have an MLB team, locals went out to celebrate the start of a new season. Athens residents dressed up in their favorite team's colors and headed for local bars to watch tonight games and eat Cincinnati chili. In the Cincinnati, the party is only getting started. Reds fans gathered in downtown Cincinnati today for the 104th Findlay Market Opening Day Parade. The parade began in 1919 and is one reason many call opening day an established holiday in Cincinnati. According to the parade's website, opening day is baseball's annual festival, and nowhere is it celebrated like it is in the Queen City. An update in Trump's indictment. Attorney for the former president says that he will be arraigned next week. The president is expected to be fingerprinted and take a mugshot when he lands. Of explosions is being called the boat. And here's a look